Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our board meeting. And if you can, please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks. Before we begin with our formal presentations, I just wanted to point out that last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, and we as a board would like to publicly acknowledge and thank and appreciate all of our hardworking teachers here at Lake George. We appreciate everything that you do to advance the academics, the personal, the social, and the community and culture of Lake George. Realizing the mission that we have here, you are front and center and mean so much to us. So if we could get a round of applause for our teachers. Excellent, thank you. All right, so we are starting off with a home and careers curriculum presentation with Jill Long.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Jill Long, and I teach Family and Consumer Sciences here at the Junior Senior High School. Assistance.
Moving it? Yeah. All right.
Okay. All right, so other subject areas pop up in my classroom on a daily basis. My 7th grade home and career students recently were taught how to read and interpret food labels. We focused on the percentage of sodium and sugar in foods that they eat on a daily basis or a regular basis. My 8th grade students worked on creating a budget recently with the average salary of an American between the ages of 20 and 24 just starting out. In my creative foods classes, we recently wrapped up a unit on yeast breads where students learned what it takes for yeast to live, as well as the reaction that occurs, what causes the yeast breads to rise. In 7th and 8th grade home and careers, students are required to journal about their community service experiences. My 7th graders also, during our clothing management unit, they choose an article of clothing and they research how it changes throughout multiple decades. This week in my creative foods classes, we're taking a look at the history of pies and ingredients, the common ingredients that when they first came out, what was in them, found in them. Yes. Okay. All right, so goal 1, target C, the college survival course supports this. So college survival is a 20-week course that is offered to high school seniors, and it prepares them for applying for schools. We talk about scholarships. We have guest speakers come in, college reps from different schools all over the place. In 8th grade home and careers, students research different occupations based on their interests and their abilities. Goal 4, target B, This is accomplished through cooking labs that happen in almost every single FACS class that's offered. Also, in 7th grade home and careers, students, we touch on the 7 habits of highly effective teens, which is a nice segue for students coming up from the elementary school where they get the Leader in Me program. Goal 5, Target A, every student in Home and Careers 7 and Home and Careers 8 are required to complete 5 hours of community service. All right, so on the left-hand side of the screen is the New York State Learning Standards for Family and Consumer Sciences, which are supported through the courses that are offered here at the junior senior high school. 7th and 8th grade home and careers is required for students to take. It is a New York State mandate that students receive 30 weeks of home and careers. So how that's done here is they receive, in 7th grade, students receive 20 weeks. And in 8th grade, students receive 10 weeks. The last 4 courses there are electives, which are offered to students in grades 9 through 12, with the exception of college survival, which is offered to seniors here. All of these courses support the district's vision, I believe, of creating an engaging environment because all of the classes are very, very hands-on. There's been a ton of department changes, starting with classroom updates. So this summer, I believe it'll be 2 years since there's been major renovations in the FACS classroom. There was new cabinets put in, new countertops, new floorings. There was a couple of walls that were knocked down just to open up the space. Also, there recently was taken out of the classroom. There was very outdated sewing tables that were very big and bulky and took up a ton of space in the classroom. So those were removed. I took the sewing machines out first. And students this year, for the first time, sewed on their workspace on the tables. And it worked out really well. And like I said, it really opened up the classroom and gave us a lot more space. As far as curriculum updates go, an advertising unit was added to 8th grade home and careers, and a working in a restaurant unit was added to the cooking classes. So at the end of every school year, guidance provides information about students who are interested in taking your classes the following year. And it is super helpful, and it's what I use to choose what electives will run for that school year. The cooking classes tend to be the more popular of the classes. I have we got this information a couple weeks ago, and I have 17 students enrolled in international foods, which will run next school year. So that was pretty exciting to see a nice chunk of students that signed up to take that class. Professional development opportunities are always welcomed, and they're super helpful. I've taken advantage of a ton that have been offered here. I have also worked in other districts that have mobile demonstration tables, which are super helpful for demoing for my 7th grade students. Before they cook anything in the kitchen, I demo it from start to finish. So a mobile demonstration table allows an aerial view of exactly what I'm doing. So that is super helpful for demonstrations. And And then goals and checkpoints for this school year, as far as next, is just continue to work on curriculum mapping, exploring different electives to offer to high school students, and also the potential for some internship opportunities, whether it be programs that are already running here or exploring new ones. So my last slide was just asking if anybody had any questions or comments.
I just have a quick question, Jill.
Yes.
Have you ever done any kind of collaboration with the business department here? They do such good internships and stuff. I was just curious.
So no, I'm actually we're in the process of setting up a meeting with the business teachers. So with the possibility of me helping them out next year with internships
Great.
or looking at a program that students can earn college credit through Adirondack Community College. So those are two possibilities
Thank you.
for
That's
next year.
great.
You're welcome.
Wonderful.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to let you know, I love in your curriculum connections, it showed real life problem solving and critical thinking skills. That's so important. Thank you. I love the segue of tying the leader in me to the junior, senior high school. So that K through 12 consistency in the leadership, that's awesome. And I love that you've added working in a restaurant. I mean, we live right here all around Lake George Village, and I'm sure the restaurant owners are thrilled and the kids are getting more real life skills. So thank you for your work and creativity.
Thank you.
Jill, thanks so much. I just want to say that I love pie. I love that it's part of your curriculum. And I have a question for my folks at the board table here. Harold and the Purple Crayon, if you're familiar with that book, he draws a picnic and he draws a certain number of pies. Does anybody know how many pies he draws in that book? No, that's a good question. He draws 9 pies, and it's one of my favorite games to play. If I were to have 9 pies, which would they be? But
Trisha, I'm rolling my eyes over here.
it's all right. I actually have a real question,
Oh,
more than my silly comment. I'm curious, in the home and careers, you mentioned working in a restaurant. If there is promotion of working in trades and in the military as part of the curriculum as well.
I mean, that specifically was for a cooking class.
Yeah.
But I always talk about BOCES, the programs. My husband and I are both BOCES graduates. I went through the culinary program there, and my husband went through the electrical program, and we both ended up, I became a home and career teacher, and he is a line mechanic for National Grid. So I always talk about those programs to students, and they're great experiences that they can receive while they're in high school, which is why I'm so excited to hopefully be a part of the internships next year, because I got a little taste of that while I was in high school and loved it.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you.
welcome.
Do we have any other questions? Jill, thank you very much. This was great. All right. Next up is Mr. Conway with the elementary update.
Good evening, everybody. So next Tuesday is an exciting time for us at the elementary school because we have our art show and our open house. And if you remember, last year we had our art show again without the open house, without folks traveling into the classrooms, into the clusters. And the year before, none of that. So we're excited again to have things open, to welcome our families back. And I know that our kids are very excited about that as well. So one of the things that we do that night as well is our parents, we put them to work. I know there's some parents out there, we do put you to work. And we ask folks to fill out a brief survey. It's not the real long one, it's a shorter one, but to get feedback on how we're doing as a school with some open-ended questions, but then also specific to leadership and teaching the 7 habits to our students and what leadership looks like for our kids. And that helps shape the goals that we set for our school each year. We did have kindergarten roundup last week, and that was really exciting to see our kids, our new students coming in and get to meet some new families. A lot of siblings, younger brothers and sisters, but it was exciting to get to meet those new kids and new families. Also last week, I wanted to mention, because I don't think I had a chance to do this, but our staff took a survey last March, and it was connected to their feelings and thoughts and experiences through teaching through the craziness of COVID and virtual and in person and all that came with that. And the questions were from the UAlbany, New York Kids Survey. They do a lot of research with this group connected to education, and they found out that our staff were outliers among their studies that they did in the Capital District, extending out to the Utica area. So they said, well, we want to come in and we want to talk to people to find out, what you did differently. So it was great. I had a chance to speak for about an hour with them prior to the meeting. And then our staff had an opportunity as well to share the good, the bad, the ugly, things that went well, things that did not go so well. And there were two other schools in the region, one, I think one of the Guilderland schools and possibly somebody out in Whitesboro. And I'm interested in getting that information on what they did as well. So I'll share that with you. But, a small thing I think to be proud of that we survived that, and people generally felt positive about how things went, and we were able to share some of the creative work that our staff did to make things work for our students throughout that time. This is a busy time of year for interviewing with the retirements that we have at the elementary school. So while we lose some tremendous teachers in our district, it's also an exciting time to hire some new folks. So, but it's a busy process, and we have interview teams that are meeting some new folks, and we'll be having some of these candidates teach lessons, so we really get to see them working with our children, and that's going on for several weeks. One of the things that I'm very proud of that really in both buildings we have opportunities to do is host schools, host other folks to come in to take a look at some of the things that we're doing. And again, past few years, screeching halt, but now that's opened up again. And we've had, this will be the third school. Next Friday, Little Falls is going to come visit us and take a look at what we're doing with leadership for our kids. I think it's a nice indicator. We feel proud of that. We get an opportunity to speak to some folks from another district as well and share some best practices, things that they're doing, but they're coming to see our program as well. End of the year this year, our 6th grade trip is back on. Kids are going to Boston. That's great. The virtual thing was okay. Our teachers did a really great job putting that together, but it was not the same. So the kids wind up going to the Boston Museum of Science and the USS Constitution, among other fun in Boston. So the last thing I'll say is our moving up ceremony is Thursday, June 23rd, 7 p.m. at the elementary school. Our plan as of now is to have it in the gym, but we're considering other possibilities. Last year when we held it outside, it was wonderful, and we'll take a look at what those possibilities are, but it's still going to be on the 23rd at 7 p.m. That's my report.
Thanks. Do you have a question?
A comment about the fact that our teachers, when they did the survey, ended up being outliers, and you were, interested in finding out what the other schools did. I mean, you can't. Being a school that decided to try to stay in person last academic year. I mean, it just played such a huge role. And I think we'll see that benefit with our students too, as far as not having that big of a gap to make up for. But it'll be interesting, I think, to see if the other schools that were outliers were maybe just a couple other schools that had made the same brave choice that we did. So thank you for doing that.
It will be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kokozis coming up with a secondary report.
Hi, folks. Good evening. So the buzz in the village is about the front sign. The front sign project has finally started. We want to make it clear that it is fully funded through donations from the Lake George High School class of 1970, 1980, and the Alumni Association. However, the class of 70 has taken the lead on the project because 52 years ago, their gift to this school was that front sign. So it definitely is has been in need of some repairs, and we're excited that it'll be restored to its original glory. The Lake George High School junior class, the class of 2023, had a magical prom on April 30th at Shepherd Park, Blue Water Manor, and Adventure Racing. And we can't say enough thanks to our parents who volunteered to help out, along with our advisor, Dante Saletti and Marianne Dunbar, for all the work that they did, and our incredible students, how they exceeded our expectations throughout that entire junior prom. So junior class had their prom. Senior class did not last year. They voted to delay it till this year. So Friday, June 3rd will be the senior prom, albeit their ball, with a similar coronation at Shepherd Park, followed by their event at Fort William Henry. There are a lot of things going on right now, and I could go on for hours. I'll highlight just a few. Junior high art show begins tomorrow night at the Marriott. So starting at 5 o'clock, you can go over to the Marriott and see our junior high students and their artwork exhibited for all of the visitors of the Marriott Hotel. Our senior high art department is yet again well represented at the Hyde Juried Show. The awards were this past weekend, and the exhibit runs for the balance of the month. So if you have a few moments, head over to Glens Falls to the Hyde to see our student work well represented. So a lot of field trips and events going on. Astronomy Club is going to MySci in Schenectady. Junior High Honor Society is going to New York City. Art Club's going to Boston. The NYSSMA solos are occurring at Boston Spa. Today, our rock solid student leaders of the senior class, along with the entire 7th grade, did a community service day out and about throughout the village and the town. We have our senior high concert on Monday. Randy's Run the following Saturday, the 21st, at the elementary school. The Lake George Scholarship Association had a highly successful scholarship cruise Friday evening. So we're very pleased with the crowd, wall-to-wall people, and hopefully the Scholarship Association did well Friday evening. I believe that they did. Raising money for senior scholarships for our graduating seniors. FBLA did incredible in Rochester, competing at the state level. They came home with more awards than they ever have, and they are now competing at the national level in late June in Chicago, Illinois. The entire team qualified. And our VEX team just got back from Dallas, Texas, competing on the world's level. They came home with more awards than they ever have in the four. Katie, how many? 5? 4 or 5 times that they have gone to Worlds. I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me. However, they did very well in Dallas, Texas. Athletically, our spring season is coming to a very fast end for our spring sports. And as many know, this week, baseball and softball will have their spring league tournaments. So there's a lot going on in Lake George High School right now. All good stuff.
And how wonderful that they can go. They
Yes.
can go and they can do. That's marvelous. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Rosemary?
So I personally know how much work it is to produce a prom, and to have 2 this year. I'd like to thank all the advisors and you, Mr. Kokoza, because I know you're there every minute of the time. So it's very impressive, and I'd like to also thank our students for being so wonderful. So
Thanks, Rose.
You. All right, Dr. Huntley, up with the superintendent report.
Thank you. I'm incredibly impressed with what is happening with students in this district. It's pretty amazing when you listen to those 2 reports every month. The students in this district have so many opportunities, and they're so skilled. Texas, Syracuse, Illinois, FBLA, VEX Robotics, they're just doing so very well, competing at the local, national, and with VEX Robotics at the world level. It's remarkable. So when I came into the district in September, in addition to meeting people, I did building tours and did a tour of the junior, senior high school, the elementary school, impressed by both, and then went to the bus garage. And that experience was an eyebrow-raising experience. It opened my eyes, and it was kind of a wow moment, as a matter of fact. And I can understand why. The more I got to know, learn a little bit about the district and what has been occurring in the district over time, I realized that the junior, senior high school had items that needed to be addressed here, including a lot of infrastructure, classroom work, and also a roof across over the entire, just about the entire building. And the elementary school at one point in time had buckets all over the place, catching water that was dripping through the roof there. So they had to have infrastructure work, roofing, and all sorts of other things. So the priorities were placed in the correct place. And now is the time, I believe, for the district to take a look at the bus garage and make some movement in that direction. And there's another reason that I think the bus garage is in the condition that it's in. After spending a considerable amount of time working with Lynn Durway and Andy Raymond and the Board of Education, the Buildings and Grounds Committee, there's not a solution that pops out at you. There's not an aha solution. You really have to look and dig to find a solution for the bus garage. So this evening, Andy Raymond and I would like to share with you what we see as the needs that should be addressed at the bus garage. And in June, we will follow up this presentation with another presentation on some of the options that might be considered as solutions for the district. We've been working on this all year. We presented at a board meeting in the fall. A lot of time and effort has gone into this presentation, but there's not the official piece is yet to come. This is just local work that we're doing in conjunction with volunteer work that our architectural firm has been donating to the district. So does somebody have the clicker? Oh, here we go. Thank you. So to begin, and we'll be very brief. This is actually a brief presentation on the conditions of the current bus garage. Andy was so gracious to stay to work with the Buildings and Grounds Committee and gracious to help with this presentation. So Andy. So I'll provide some background information, and Andy will provide the expertise on the slide over here. So all of this information, the presentation is built entirely off a building condition survey. Every 5 years, each district in New York State must go through a building condition survey. The building condition survey is a review by an architectural firm. In most cases, almost all cases, you have to have an architect or an engineer. So most districts do the wise thing and use an architectural firm. We used Tetra Tech. So their architects and engineers spent time in the entire district looking at all aspects of the physical structures in the district. The bus garage this year received a rating that I think was deserving, and it's a rating of unsatisfactory. The building conditions survey is a summary of it, comes out in a hard copy like this. And so the information is not subjective information, it's information that's being presented as a result of the building conditions survey. So we begin by looking at the ratings of specific areas in that come from the survey. So on the left-hand side, everything that you see is coming from the building condition survey. And you'll see that the roof and skylights are unsatisfactory rating, and the water supply is an unsatisfactory rating. The water supply is original 1953. They no longer use water from that water supply. They bring in their own water in order to use for drinking purposes. You can see leakage on the right-hand side, and you can see on the condition of the building on the left-hand side. So what you see here, Andy is going to describe to you very, very briefly. We could spend, a lot of time just on these slides alone, but we'll just briefly move through these.
This is our boiler room, excuse me, our boiler room area where we've received a lot of leaks, a lot of issues. As you can see indicated by the stains, the brown stains on the walls, the floor, water leaks every time we have a rainstorm. Or if there's a melt off. The bucket on the middle picture is a regular item in that room. Every time it rains or we have melt off from the snow, we have buckets there to collect the water. There are several spots just within that one part where we have issues. The third picture to the right, water was leaking down that wall and actually filled the breaker box, causing electrical issues in the building.
So the story goes, this fall, Andy came in after a storm, opened up the breaker box, and what was in it?
It was water.
Water. It was filled with water, which generated some.
We had some issues where it triggered the fuel pump to the external tank that we have to fuel the buses with that contains about 3,600 gallons of diesel fuel. It was flickering on and off, which activates an alarm outside of the building. It also triggered the fire alarms to go on and off inside the building.
Thanks. Where is the computer that? The rating on the electrical power distribution system is unsatisfactory, as is the lighting and also the fire alarms. So what you see in this picture, these are in Andy's office, actually. This is the electrical power distribution system. And for some reason, this isn't clicking. Oh, there we go. And this is it. So for those of you who have any background in this type of work at all will recognize that in addition to the breaker boxes for part of the building, this system controls an awful lot of the building. You see there are glass fuse twist ends, 1953 vintage in the middle.
These are the glass fuses here.
Yeah.
And then the cartridge fuses that are used for the heavier amperage.
And the others are cartridge fuses, again, 1953 vintage. Andy's going to talk about the lifts.
So this particular lift that we're looking at here was installed as a fix to the larger in-ground lift that we utilize for the large buses. That larger in-ground lift was in the past able to accommodate some of the smaller vehicles and pickup trucks that the district has. The cost to replace that lift or even do the repairs necessary to it were in such excess, it really wasn't worth putting that type of money into this building. This here was the fix for it. So we're able to put the smaller vehicles, the school vans that we have 7, along with the number of pickup trucks that were utilized for buildings and grounds purposes. However, we cannot do any services to the larger buses. So any of the smaller capacity from 26 up to our 65 passenger buses cannot be serviced on this lift.
This is the secure parts storage. In the background, that's actually a misnomer because there is no secure parts storage. That's where the parts lie, is on the bench. In the foreground, you'll see the break room for the bus drivers. We have about 20 bus drivers. They need ongoing professional development training, individual training, small group training, and whole group training, and this is where it's done. I've been in there when Andy's been doing it, and it's quite a sight, actually. So, and this is Andy's storage for tires and batteries.
We do not have a designated area to keep our tires in. This has become the area to keep tires. As you see, it's multiple things that are put there. It is as neat and organized as we can get it, given the limited space that we do have.
And locker facilities don't exist. What you see here actually is one of the bathrooms.
This is the access to the ladies' room in the facility. It's the door to the facilities here for the rest area is on the external part of the building. So if the ladies need to go use the facilities, they must exit the building and go through this doorway, working their way past the side of the bus that's already parked there. And then when they do get in there in the wintertime, the heat's not always adequate. It can be a little chilly.
The wash bay is on the right-hand side, and just to be really brief, there is no water reclamation system. Most of the time, even during the winter, when you go over there, the drivers are taking the buses outdoors, almost regardless of what the temperature is, washing the buses outdoors because it's very difficult to wash a bus inside. But I want to mention also that having been a superintendent in a few different districts over a long period of time, I think our buses are as clean as any district that I've been in. They do a nice job.
Thank you.
What you see here is there is no air exchange system in the building. So there are two of these fans that run continuously in the work area. And those blades are cleaned on a regular basis, but that's the kind of, because there is no air filtration system, that's the kind of atmosphere that they're working in. The building is it was originally built in 1953 as the elementary school. Next to it, the green part is elementary, the yellow part is the school gymnasium, and in addition, in 2002, you can see, because the buildings were attached to one another, and so you have block on one building, brick on another, different roof lines. That's one of the reasons, or a big reason, for the leaks that Andy's getting on a regular basis. And Lynn Durway did have repairs done to these roofs in the fall.
The access to the buses themselves when the drivers are coming in the morning or the afternoons is very, very limited to get by. I'm obviously a larger than average person. The space is very, very tight just to get to the back of the bus, to open a door, to get the bus out of the building, and then work your way around between the buses and then get into the bus. You have mirrors in the way, the doors themselves to get on the bus. Many times trying to open or close the doors is quite a task.
Got one more click there. There we go. So it'll take a moment for Andy to move through this, but every bus that Andy purchases, and we purchase a bus a year, We have a replacement plan that every 10 years, or approximately every 10 years, we replace our buses. So it's 1 to 2 buses a year. But every time Andy orders a bus, that bus has to be modified fairly significantly. So we're going to show you how that happens and how that occurs.
So one of the things we do first are the mirrors. This allows us with the smaller mirrors to gain access widthwise with the bus to get it into the bays. However, with the smaller mirrors, there are larger ones that are available for the buses. So we could have more visibility with mirrors on the side of the bus. However, we have to purchase the smaller mirrors so that we make sure we have clearance. Antennas on the buses are 2-way radios and AM/FM radios. They're usually high and centered on the buses. They have to be relocated, and we do get shorter antennas. In talking with the radio company that we utilize, it does affect some of that transmission of the radio. It's not as good as it could be if it were on top of the bus.
Tires.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that one. The smaller tires, the buses generally come standard with an 11 R22.5. We buy them with a 10 R22.5, which shortens the height that the vehicle will stand in order to get the clearance to come into the building once again.
Got the roof hatch.
The low profile roof hatches give us about another inch and a half of clearance so that we're able to access inside the building once again.
This one I have never seen before. On a
We
bus.
ordered these and we worked it out years ago in order to gain more space and as much as possible. The vehicles are set up with an air suspension system. So there's bags in the back of the bus that are like a spring, they're an air spring. So we deflate the airbags and drop the bus all the way down as far as possible. And it's about 2.5 to 3 inches that we can drop it. And so we're able to get the vehicle into the building. There are lights that are available for the back of the bus. A strobe fashion light. I think some people have probably seen them on other school buses throughout the area here. I think Queensbury might have a few on their buses. We're not able to purchase that due to the clearance issues we have getting in and out of the building. It would not last a day.
So these are items that Andy's going to talk about in the next slide. That there's a short video, but the thing to pay attention to is the air release that you're going to see in just a moment. Items 1, 2, 3, and 4 are the different levels that the buses have to move through in order to get into the bus garage. And even though they're very small differences in the level, they're significant for the drivers. And number 6 are the mirrors. Andy will talk about the mirrors. So here we go with the video, very short.
The first step in our process, lower the bus before we back out.
Can you see the bus shrinking?
Now, as the bus backs out of the building, there's a process to this. As it goes out, the driver's side mirror, the mirrors are offset. The driver's side mirror must come out first. So then we do a little maneuvering, and then the passenger side mirror comes out. During this process, there's an alarm going off inside that bus to let us know that the air suspension has lowered itself all the way down. And there's our alarm.
There's a mirror.
And then the reentry, here's where you can see the step process as the bus rises up to come into the building. Now, all these things we have to keep in mind. Do I have enough? Am I too close on my roof? Is the door all the way open? Is the suspension dumped? Are my mirrors adjusted properly so they're in close, in far enough where they're not going to hit the pillars coming in the building?
And
And your speed has to be very minimal, just enough to get in the building.
go ahead. This isn't. There we go. And every time a bus leaves, there's a pre-trip check that the driver does.
The drivers are required to do a pre-trip inspection anytime they go out with their bus. In order to do those pre-trip inspections, due to limited spaces, as you see here with the brick pillar, the drivers aren't able to get all the way around the bus. Even if the bus was all the way in, they can't get in front of the bus to inspect the bus. So it has to be moved out. And if they move it out partway, there's not enough room to check other items on the bus. So it gets moved outside the building. As they move them outside the building, we get 1, 2, 3. We have people coming and going at different times. Now you have all this traffic congestion in the parking lot. And then in the wintertime, we add snow to that. So it really cuts down the space that they have to conduct these pre-trip inspections. So the wintertime, especially on that pre-dawn time at 6:30, when some of these drivers are backing out, you're backing out in pretty much total darkness. With the smaller mirrors that are on the sides of the buses, it's difficult to get a good view as it is. But then you have these pillars that are so close to the side of the bus, and you're trying to watch the bus as it goes out and watch for anybody that might be behind you that might be performing a pre-trip inspection on their bus. And as you can see by the marks on the pillar right there, contact does take place. So our fleet of vans, which we have 7 currently, are located along Mountain Drive. This is the best space that we've found to accommodate for parking for drivers that are coming and going, and access to these vans. However, when we get inclement weather, the vehicles have to be moved and staged in another area. Currently, we're parking them on the ramp to the new tennis courts. So if we know of possible weather over a weekend or that night, the guys will go out and they'll move the vans, or the drivers, when they're coming back at the end of the day, we'll ask them to stage their vans up near the tennis courts on the ramp so they're safely out of the way. Our fueling station has been there a long, long time and has definitely outlived its useful life. The pumps have been there. I've been here for 23 years. The pumps have been there long, long before I have been. The tank itself has had numerous repairs done over the years, but never been replaced. It's definitely past its useful life.
So at the next meeting in June, we'll talk to you about options. So this year, as far as the bus garage is concerned, we've done local work, local exploration, local identification of needs. Once we got the building conditions survey, then it became much more technical because we were working with architects and architects' work. As I mentioned earlier, the architects generously provided their time throughout the course of this year. So the objective is to identify the need, to talk about some of the options, and then in the transition in administration is to turn all of this over to Superintendent Luthringer and his administration and his leadership to begin to address this. And my recommendation in June will be for the Board of Education to enter into a contractual agreement with Tetra Tech to conduct a pre-referendum phase of this for the bus garage. Pre-referendum is not expensive. I don't know exactly, we're getting some figures from them, but it's not an expensive phase. But what it does, it brings your community together, members of your community. We're looking at a relatively small committee with the buildings, Janine, with the Buildings and Grounds Committee participating, and administrators and community members and other logical people, other logically chosen people, or, to work on this project over time, leading to a vote at some point in time when the Board of Education decides, in order to address these issues. So there are no solutions this year. Your solutions you begin working on your solutions July 1. So that's the bus garage. Any comments or questions that you might have?
Well, it's worth saying, we said this in Buildings and Grounds today, and Janine and I, we were able to tour the bus garage and see it in person. And it's worth saying again that given now we kind of see everything that they've been dealing with, that we have such a great team that keeps things running seamlessly, that they're able to, they showed us how they backed up a bus and how they brought it in. It was amazing that they were able to do what they can do, and they do it on a regular basis. And, you've been waiting long enough. So
Thank you very much.
we're really hoping to move this forward.
Yeah, I'd like to just echo what Melissa just said and just really condemn you for your adaptability and perseverance. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, to
Thank you
you
very
and your
much.
team of professionals, your mechanics, your drivers. Do an excellent job for what you have to deal with.
Very fortunate.
Thank you.
I appreciate the admiration towards my people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy. You can head home now so you can get back here at 5 in the morning. The only other item that I have is relative to academics. So we're working on focusing on the bus garage, but in terms of academics, one of the things that I have noticed throughout the course of the year, and I think this is a need that the district has addressed over the years, actually. So I've been working with the administrators, the Board of Education, and our faculty and staff to address this need. So when it comes to curriculum, what we've noticed is the district has a very strong curriculum, very strong teachers. But the continuity of curriculum K through 12 needs some work. We need to look at curriculum, particularly in the core areas, math, science, English, and social studies, to look at the spiraling of the curriculum, the continuity of the curriculum. We're looking to prioritize the curriculum. An awful lot of time and effort needs to go into this, and it's continuous. It really doesn't stop. And with a special emphasis, or particular emphasis, on that transition from grade 6 to grade 7. I was talking with a teacher just this morning about that kind of challenge. So we're looking at a person to dedicate time in order to do this. We also have, even though we have declining enrollment, or at the same time we have declining enrollment, we have a significant turnover in teachers now and in the next several years. Now, all of those positions all of the positions that will be lost due to retirement will not be replaced. We know that because of declining enrollment, but a good number of them will. So the district really needs to have a new teacher induction program. It's not as easy today to find quality teachers as it may have been a few years ago, when you would have 60, 70, or 100 or more teachers applying for an elementary position. That doesn't happen anymore. And when you get into other positions that are more specific to a subject area, it becomes even more challenging. So we want to attract quality teachers. We want to bring them into the district, and we want to support them and keep them here and provide ongoing professional development. And then the third area is professional development K through 12, to provide some continuity, to provide some consistency and leadership in the area of continuity. So we're not looking at a new position. That's not part of the recommendation or the plan. But we are looking at adjusting duties and responsibilities so that we can address this issue internally. So we'll come back to the Board of Education in June with a recommendation for your consideration. Again, adjusting duties, responsibilities in order to address these, what I think are very important issues that will help the district, I think, tremendously moving into the future. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Doug. Does anybody have any questions or comments? All right, moving on. Katie Bruning has our Audit and Finance Committee report.
Before I go over the audit and finance, I just wanted to extend a warm thank you to Lynn Durway. I know both of you thanked her on Tuesday night when she did the budget presentation, but I just want to thank you and the folks in the business office, the administration, and everybody who helped put the budget together. And your presentation really gave us a nice overview of that and details. And it's a really great budget, and I appreciate all the work that went into it. And a week from today is folks, it goes out for vote. So thank you. So audit and finance, our committee met on April 27th, and we went over the treasurer's report and the claim auditor's report. And those are items C and D on the business consent agenda tonight. Lynn Durway indicated that we are starting to see interest rates increase, and it is projected that the federal funds rate will increase several more times in 2022, driving rates up further. We reviewed the food service profit and loss statement through January 31st of this year. The net loss for this year, as of the end of January, was around $2,000. We learned that we serve about 100 breakfasts and 325 lunches in the district each day. And we also have a la carte sales. And during this period, we had almost 42,000, which helped our bottom line. And we had a request for proposals for insurance that was issued. The Upstate agency submitted the sole proposal for coverage with Utica National. And good news, the total cost this year, it will be $58,757, which is a slight reduction from last year's cost. That's always exciting when you get a reduction. The cyber insurance through Travelers insurance will increase this year, and that will cost $11,435. And that is item E on the consent agenda for tonight. We had a discussion regarding the terms and conditions for unaffiliated employees. There are 6 employees that are not in bargaining units due to their positions being either management positions or confidential positions. And the terms and conditions for 2022, 2023 are recommended for approval tonight, and that is in Section 5, Item B on the agenda tonight. The district is working with Warren County Civil Service Department to create temporary painter positions for summer work. And after the details are worked out, the district will do an internal posting. Dr. Huntley reported that we are investigating the possibility of having F1 visa students attend Lake George. And there was a group from our district that visited Newcomb and Queensbury on Friday, April 29th to learn more about their programs. Dr. Huntley indicated that we are waiting to hear more about the funds for healthcare workers that were included in the recently passed New York State budget. And lastly, for future planning, Dr. Huntley suggested brainstorming ways to update our cafeteria to make the space more appealing for mealtime, such as converting it into a cafe style space. And there were also discussions about making the space more user-friendly for multiple purposes during non-meal times. It was a lengthy meeting.
Thanks, Katie. Any questions? I think it's particularly exciting when I think about during the pandemic and how the cafeteria was laid out with everyone in their individual desks and all in rows. And now we're in a place where we're thinking about creating a social, inviting atmosphere for dining. Thank you. Thank you for thinking about that and brainstorming. Mary Ann McKenzie has our curriculum committee report.
Yeah.
And then it'll be followed with the policy.
So thank you. And on that, well, we'll talk a little bit about some of those connection themes here. From our curriculum presentation, the curriculum committee met on April 12th. We had 2 outstanding presentations. The links are provided in the minutes, and I urge everybody to take a look at those. There's a lot of wonderful information in them. The first presentation was the K-12 library update presented by our library media specialist, Bridget Crossman from the elementary school and Sarah Olson from the junior senior high school. And their theme for this year was connectivity, getting reconnected through literacy and love of learning. And which is so obviously meaningful and important given the disruptions and distancing that students experienced during COVID. And it was just amazing, the creative ideas that were presented. Just to name a couple of them, there's summer reading, ice cream summer reading groups, student library advisory committee, a human library where students can take an adult with knowledge in a particular area would volunteer to share their information, and a child could take out that book and sit down with an adult and learn some things. So anyway, just really enriching. At the elementary school, Bridget spoke about the use of a flex schedule, which allows her to support students when at the moment that they need assistance, rather than children having to wait for library day once a week or whatever the schedule might be. She's able to be more available more immediately. They indicated that it sounds like there's a proposal at the state level to have media literacy may end up becoming its own mandated curriculum, just for information, and that our library media specialists may be looking for support in the areas of professional development, in the areas of media literacy, computer science, digital library standards, and then funding for programs that they're creating. So the second presentation was the K-12 Social Studies Department update from, again, Bridget Crossman from the elementary school and Michelle Elder from the junior senior high school. And again, just so meaningful. They spoke to their academic approach, instructional approach, starting with inquiry. So it was an inquiry model. And they talked about through their goals and checkpoint process, they identified an area that for improvement and focus K through 12 in the area of geographical reasoning. So that's an area that they'll be focusing on. They have testing changes. There's a new global and U.S. history regents, new offering, AP government, and they are planning on and working toward a new seal of civic readiness, which is pretty exciting. They'll needs that they anticipate ongoing professional development, support for innovative and instructional spaces and learning experiences, and support for course offerings, including OAS. So both presentations were just really meaningful and exciting to listen to. So it was great, and I urge you to take a look at those links. Any questions? Policy. You ready? Yeah. Okay, just let me get my Okay. So, and our policy committee met on May 2nd. The minutes from that meeting are also in the agenda. We have got 4 policies up for second read, and those are listed, and we spoke about them last month. We have 3 policies up for first read this evening, and the first one is 3430, which is our student-centered learning environment policy, formerly known as or otherwise known as our DEI policy. And just to give you an update, since we spoke last month, this draft of this document was shared with the Policy Ad Hoc Committee, along with a consensus survey. The consensus survey results, there's a document on the agenda. You can click on that and take a look at that information, and you'll see that 77% of respondents, that's 10 people, supported or strongly supported this draft policy, and 23.1% of respondents, that is 3 people, were in disagreement with the policy and sought further resolution. So as policy chairperson, I did reach out and communicated with each of those 3 individuals, and we had good exchanges, and based on those communications, as well as all of the written feedback that we received from any ad hoc members, we made some additional revisions and brought those revisions back to the policy committee at our May 2nd meeting. And the full committee discussed and endorsed those last revisions. So at this time, the work of the ad hoc committee is complete, and it appears that the work of the policy committee is also complete. So we are, recommending it to the full board for first read. I do want to mention that there were 2 individual ad hoc members who expressed an interest in delaying this policy moving forward. And we did discuss that in our committee meeting. We considered it, we reflected on it. But we ultimately recognized and acknowledged that, our process has been very well and sound and methodical, and there's really nothing more for us to do at this point except move it forward. And so, that's that policy. The other 2 policies that are up for first read tonight, both were reviewed per our routine Lake George manual review. The first one is 3140 flag display. And we took, Erie One provided us a sample policy, which had some minor wording shifts, which the committee identified as being really better suited to Lake George, the needs of Lake George. And so that sample policy is what we're recommending to first read this evening. And the other policy is 3150, school volunteers. We made some minor wordsmithing suggestions and sending it to first read. Last thing we spoke about at our committee meeting, we touched briefly on the student gender identity policy, which, if you recall, we had a recent update that we had received from Erie One BOCES, and that update prompted some questions from our committee. And when we asked those questions from our policy services, they indicated that they were in process with another update to lend some clarity along the lines of the questions we were asking. So we had consensus to pause review of that policy until pending receipt of that second update. And so in the meantime, our current policy that's on the books stands. And that's my report. Any questions?
Thanks so much, Marion. Do you have any questions? I just want to say that I was on the policy committee last year when the first recommendation for a DEI policy came, and I thought the sample policies that were provided, they weren't very satisfying to me. So I really appreciate the efforts that this year's policy committee and all the community members put forth to create something unique for Lake George. And just that, I think that there is a world of difference between a policy that is requiring inclusion and requiring people to be accepted by law, and our district is demonstrating that we're choosing to welcome people because we want that. And I just appreciate the work that and the thought that people have put in. And I know that there's still controversy and there's still opportunity for all of us to talk more and to iron it out even further as we evolve. But thank you very much, all of you. Yeah.
Everybody is really collaborative experience.
All right. And we have a number of public comments. This is our first public comment period. And we're going to ask that you come up to the mic, you speak your comments or a question, and then you sit down. We're going to time it for 3 minutes. Lynn is our timekeeper. And we're just going to ask again for respect and kindness for one another. And if we can respond with a brief response, we will respond after you've sat down, and then we'll continue on with the next. So first up is Patricia Dow.
Is there a way to kind of speak to everybody and not just facing here? I feel like I'm going like this. Is that okay? I can. I'm not used to speaking up here. I hope it doesn't suddenly fall off. It looks kind of unsteady. Okay, I want to speak to the policy student-centered learning environment. The School Board of Education in 2017 developed and adopted the mission, vision, and values, which includes their dedication to creating an engaging learning environment for each student and an appreciation for diversity and local traditions, reiterating also their values of respect, collaboration, and empathy, among other values. There are also policies on bullying and harassment, etc. You might wonder why the policy on diversity and inclusion is needed. A parallel with our village process might clarify why. Years ago, the Lake George Village Board adopted a comprehensive plan for their vision through a very inclusive collaborative process to state the residents' vision of what was important to them to have in the village in order to make it a good place to live and work. However, the comprehensive plan is just words and is not binding on anyone living here or having a business in the village. Zoning codes built on the comprehensive plan are the translation of the values of the comprehensive plan into the reality on the streets of the village, in the look and feel of the village, and into what makes it a good place for living and or working. Similarly, the Board of Education adopted the mission, value, and vision, et cetera, however you put that together. It requires translation into a policy to ensure that the school district commits in more concrete steps and ways to providing the best possible learning environment for each student. Also, that the Board of Education continues to collaborate openly and respectfully with all the district stakeholders, parents, students, teachers, staff, and community to produce a student-centered learning environment. This also binds future boards of education to this vision in an emphatic and clear statement. In closing, the Board of Education committing to a welcoming, affirming, and equitable environment in the Lake George School District does not take anything away from any other student. I would offer you the image of fall colors that I would guess most of us love until we have to rake them up. Just take a moment to imagine fall with perhaps only the yellow color, or maybe fall with only the red maple color. Isn't it better to have all the colors side by side? The gold, the yellow, the bright yellow, the red gold, the green of those leaves just beginning to change, and the evergreen, deeper green colors all together. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Next up, we have Katie Burkett.
Hi, my name's Katie Burkett, and
Katie, if
I'm-
you want to tip
Yeah.
that down, it may be easier. There you
for
go.
people problems. I am here speaking on behalf of my mother, Donna Burkett. I'm going to read her speech. Every child who walks in the doors of Lake George schools wants to feel welcome and to fit in. And for many children, that is simply not the case. Every time someone gets up here and starts yelling that we don't need this policy, it puts another knife through my heart thinking about my children, my siblings, and the experiences that they have had throughout their life due to the differences, due to feeling other, not fitting in, and not being welcome. Unless you have experienced these things with your children, please don't stand up here and preach to the rest of us that we don't need this policy. Children who struggle to learn, whose religion isn't Christian, whose family can't afford nice shoes and clothes, who are struggling with their sexuality, who has people who have body issues, whose eyes are a different shape, whose skin is a different color, whose hair is a different texture, who don't learn like other children, whose speech is unrecognizable, whose legs don't support their body like the rest of us. They are depending on us. We are the grown-ups. We are here to love, support, and educate them to be the very best that they can be. They may need more help, they may need more support, and they need desperately to feel welcome and to fit in. I know how incredibly privileged I am. That does not mean I feel guilty or responsible for actions in the past. But what it does mean that I need to look around and see how I can support others so they have the opportunities they need to be successful. Every parent and stakeholder in this community was invited to participate in this process. And having been on the committee myself, it is clear to me the authors of this policy really listened to all of the different points of view and tried hard to align this policy to speak directly to our LG mission to empower all students to be lifelong learners, leaders, and global citizens. And our vision to foster academic and personal excellence, responsibility, and cultural awareness, which includes an appreciation for diversity and local traditions, as well as an engaging learning environment for every student. How does the district achieve these philosophical ideals? Policy sets the direction and holds us accountable to it. No other single policy views the learning environment through the lens of embracing diversity, welcoming voices to the table, and making sure each individual has what they need and when they need it to succeed.
That's your time.
It's my time.
Katie, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
And I thank you for reading that on behalf of your mother. And please know that the board extends to you, as does, I imagine, the entire community, all the best care and thoughts and prayers with the important health procedure coming up for your sister. Next up, we have Marianne Perry.
I have never talked to this committee ever. I've lived in this town for 26 years. I raised my children in Chestertown, so I've lived in the area for 55 years, and that should tell you I was a young bride, so I'm not a young woman. I have been reading so much, and I've been looking into it about the DEI, and I have some concerns. And my concern is that every child is a gift from God. We're all God's children. And I think that we need to make all the children feel welcome. And it's about kindness and inclusiveness. And I feel that to try to make perhaps some of the white-skinned children to feel like they're oppressors, I don't think that's a good thing. Because I think that they would be less likely to include someone if they feel that in theory they're oppressors. And for children who are told that they're oppressed, how do these wonderful little children going to feel like growing up and that they do have a future and that the sky's the limit and they can do anything they want because they were already oppressed? And I'm just not sure that kindness, and I know I'm a lot older than almost everybody in this room, But when we were going to school, you didn't treat other children badly. Children were all different. And I grew up in Connecticut. And at that time, I there was all sorts of children in the schools. And what we were told was that all God's children are loved, that you treat people by the content of their character, to quote Reverend Martin Luther King, the content of their character, and you look past other things. And some of the things that I have researched in this diversity DEI is that you can't. I'm not sure that unless it's presented properly, you can't have children feeling like oppressors and oppressed. And I think the oppressed children will not do as well in school. And I think the child is made to feel like they're an oppressor is going to go through life with a lot of guilt and perhaps not connect with some of the people who are brown or black or marginalized, simply because they would say, now, wait a minute, if I'm this person's friend, why would they want to be a friend with me? I'm, after all, an oppressor. And
That's your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Next up, we have Robin. I'm going to say then that last name right. Is it Sheer Valley?
Yes. Good job.
Hi, my name is Robin Charavalli, Lake George alumni, class of 1982. All three of my children have gone through Lake George. My youngest, Antonio, is a senior this year. I am deeply committed to this school and our community. I'm a local business owner. I've also spent 30 years as a dedicated social worker. I've worked in a variety of settings, but none more insightful than as a mental health clinician for children, teens, and their families. I learned so much about the human heart and spirit, about suffering, resilience, empowerment, and healing. A profound theme dominated my work with these children and teenagers, and that was their deep need to feel valued, accepted, and connected, to feel like they belong, valued for their personhood and for their strengths, accepted for their differences, and connected through a sense of community. Children need this from their learning environment, a place where they spend many years of their life. So I was very willing to be a member of the ad hoc DEI policy committee, genuinely wanting Lake George to be a place where every student feels like they belong. Cultural sensitivity, as well as promoting a person-centered focus, are the cornerstones of my work. Person-centered is by no means a new concept. It's the effective working model in many areas of our lives. I read the draft of the new policy titled Student-Centered Learning Environment. I respect it and I support it. Developed through collaboration and compromise, it is a thoughtful synthesis of ideas, customized for Lake George, based on stakeholder feedback. The policy is in direct alignment of our district's mission to develop global citizens. It supports our vision to foster cultural awareness and appreciation for diversity. And it reinforces how critical it is that any member of our board supports our mission, our vision, and our values. And I thought, job well done. And then I watched the video from Meet the Candidates Night, and frankly, was quite distressed at what I heard. So distressed that I knew I had to leave my comfort zone and come here tonight and speak. This is way out of my comfort zone. But I heard a seriously misguided statement that basically says that this policy is going to create or lead to white shaming. What an alarming thing to hear with no facts or basis to support it.
That's your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. We're going to do a quick mic change. And next up is Lisa Doster.
Evening, everyone. I'd like to say that our bus garage really needs to be replaced. In regard to the non-mandated DEI document that is named Student-Centered Learning Documents, I have a couple items of concern. I asked at the policy committee meeting last week if we could please name it a diversity, equity, and inclusion document so it's very easily to be identified. All sample documents provided to the community for review contained items for staff. Our final document does not. It is only focused on students, and it should also contain staff or include staff. Please also consider allowing for public introduction to the new items that have been added to this document and further input before this document moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Linda Clark.
All right, this is addressing the library update curriculum and DEI policy. To begin, my comments were missing from the non-mandated DEI policy meeting minutes. To summarize some of them, this is not an affirmation policy as presented at the public meeting. I recommended that you go back to the community and discuss this impact and this significant change to the policy. Additionally, you included my suggestions in the link as we agreed. When I gave you permission to use the document, I explained that it had to be the exact document you received. The document online has been changed and thus you did not honor the agreement. On a positive note, though, I do see that you changed the words gender identity to identity, and I appreciate that change. With that said, I would like to highlight an example of what parents can now expect. The district is already implementing components of the DEI policy. Books are available in the library and conversations have started to sexualize children at every age. For example, Lawn Boy by Jonathan Evison is now available in the school library. It is about adult male fondly reminiscing about his sexual experiences as a fourth grader. Let me entertain you. What if I told you I touched another guy's dick? What if I told 10 years old? But it's true, I put Doug Goebel's dick in my mouth. He talked about all times at the church, but never mentioned our penises or the fact that he never said 10 words to me after our little foray in the bushes.
Excuse me.
Not a
please.
single reference to holding or tugging or
excuse me,
sucking
please.
dicks.
I
All
think
I
your
could think
language
about
is inappropriate for
While,
a
I'm
public
sorry,
meeting.
this is from a book here in
I
the
am
library.
asking you to please be
All I could
considerate
think about
of
while
the
he was
audience
chatting
that you
me
are
up was
speaking
his
to.
little salamander between my
Excuse
first
me?
grade fingers, rather
Oh, so
engorging
inappropriate.
with blood.
Your time is up.
Why you, no, it is
Your
not.
time is up.
It is not. Why won't you? It is terribly inappropriate.
Your time is up.
This book in the library. And if you're
Your time is up. Could you please sit down? Thank you.
somebody should be arrested.
Okay, thanks. We're going to move on to our next speaker, and we have Greg Saudi.
I am new to this community. In my trekking around the neighborhood and talking to people, I found out many things and none of it good. Yesterday, I started to feel sick to my stomach. You see, I do not want to run for school board, and I hate public speaking. But I feel I must protect my daughter. I want my school for my daughter to be as had I grown up. Worked hard, got good grades, and would either go to college or go to work. Now I feel most protected from being forced to undress in front of a boy who identifies as a woman, from pornography being on the shelves in the school library, having a teacher force her to use pronouns she may not agree with, under threat of grades being marked down. I'm not saying it happens, but I was in college, stuff like that happens. None of this has anything to do with school itself, math, science, reading, writing, trades, etc. It is a grooming process to change the perception of a child's reality. It is insanity packaged as inclusion and should be eradicated from the school completely, not to mention that the voters surely are not being represented. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more public comment. Can I see a show of hands if there was anybody else who was planning to comment on this first time? Okay, then we have Jen Medevere.
Thank you. I've not been here in a little while. My list of comments has grown actually through this comment period. First off, I just wanted to thank the policy committee for the time that you guys have taken to put together this new policy. I think it's been super collaborative and respectful, and I appreciate the policy. I support the policy. I know people have commented that it hasn't been necessary because there are other policies in place that address some of these things, but I feel that this is an umbrella really that kind of brings it all together comprehensively and does have accountability to the school to ensure that there is diversity, equality, and inclusion for our students and our faculty. The way that I read it, it said the school community, which I take that as the students as well as the teachers, the faculty, everyone in the school community. I do feel that that these DEI policies are definitely necessary. My niece Katie was here tonight talking about it with her own personal family experiences. I also feel it's really important that it prepares our students for the world out there. I know some people seem very fearful, and I hear a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding of what DEI means. It is not CRT. No one is talking about white people feeling oppressed. That is not what this is about. This is about making people feel included and taking down these barriers, taking down the divides. And so I think there's just misinformation and misunderstanding going on. And I think that DEI policies are necessary to prepare our kids for the real world. This is what's out there. Big companies, small companies, global, local, all around the world are focusing on DEI because this is really important. And I commend you guys for putting something together that's even more comprehensive than what we had. I see no negative aspect of that whatsoever. And I just think there's, unfortunately, just a lot of misunderstanding and miscommunication of what this means. And I just wanted to let you know I support the policy and hope that it passes. Thank you for the opportunity.
Doug, is this one working? Okay. Doug, I'm wondering if you can speak to a couple of things that came up in public comment. One is was a claim that the policy may lead to a conversation about oppressors and being oppressed in the classroom. And then the maybe a comment about if somebody has a concern with instructional materials that are here in the school, the appropriate way to address that.
Start over. Apologize. So I've been an educator for well over 40 years, going on closer to 50 actually. 30 of those years I've been a superintendent of schools. I've worked in a few different districts, and one of the areas of what I believe is one of my areas of certainly interest and expertise is in the area of policy development. I've watched a good number of districts wrestle with policies over the years. In this particular case, I've watched the Lake George Central School District do things that are a little bit different than other districts, and that is to address a policy, this DEI policy, in a collaborative open manner, inviting anyone in the community who wants to participate in an open forum setting. They did that in the fall of the year, and then received quality information from the community. And as opposed to ending there and moving one of the policies that sample policies forward, they listened to what was said by the ad hoc committee and made adjustments. I thought they were very thoughtful in the process. I thought they were very deliberate. I thought they listened and made significant adjustments. The policy that's being recommended this evening is nowhere near the any of the recommended policies or sample policies that were presented at the ad hoc committee, largely because the ad hoc committee had recommendations, and the Board of Education, under the leadership of the policy committee, Mary Ann McKenzie, made adjustments to those policies. I watched Mary Ann work very hard at trying to accommodate all of the needs that were presented to her, all of the recommendations that were presented to her. And I watched the committee work very hard on this topic. And I think what they came up with was a policy that is hard to, in my opinion, criticize. If you read the policy, if you look at it and read it, it's a policy that makes a great deal of sense. It's very helpful for a superintendent of schools to have that kind of a policy in order to administer, in order to carry out the will of the Board of Education. And I know I've talked with the administrators, and they feel similarly that this policy is very much needed and will provide all of us with the opportunity to help students in the best way possible. So that's my take after many years of being in education on this particular policy. I think there's a place for it. I think Lake George has been very considerate and very open in their process, and I support the policy fully. In terms of people that may have, or a person that may have an issue with a book in the public school, any public school as a matter of fact, but in the Lake George Central School District Public School, there's actually a policy that deals with that too. So anyone that has an issue, please bring that issue forward, and we'll consider the concern or the comment coming from the public. We'll follow the policy, and we'll deal with the issue on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you so much, Dr. Huntley. And thank you all for your comments. We're going to move on in our agenda to the school business consent agenda.
Recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the board consent agenda A through F. A through F includes minutes from the meetings on April 12th, 16th, and 8th. Also recommended special education. Fund, claims auditor report, recommendation, state agency, to the national for services, and also recommendations on policies that are being posted in.
Move approval. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. None opposed. Motion is carried. And school business item B.
Recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the board
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion is carried.
Recommended by the superintendent. Spain, approximately 10.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried.
Plattsburgh.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion is carried.
Staff consent agenda. Superintendent. Driver tra-
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Motion is carried.
listed in
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. None opposed. Motion is carried.
recommended by the superintendent.
So
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Congratulations, Megan. Did you see everyone? Everybody wanted to move that motion. All right, we've come to the section for board comments and discussion. Do we have any topics folks want to bring up? No? You may have the mic.
I just wanted to make one comment about the title of the student-centered learning environment policy. I think there was a concern expressed about people being able to locate it in the policy manual. We have a search bar in that in the online. If you type in diversity, equity, and inclusion, that policy would pop up. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you, Marianne. Anyone else? All right. So we have another, what's that? Do we have the sheet for the second round? Is there anybody who signed up for the second round? We do have somebody in the second round. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. All right, we have Linda Clark and Lisa Doster both listed. Linda Clark, you may come up. Linda, I'm going to remind you, it is a public meeting, and I'm going to ask you to refrain from any profanity in your talk. I would ask you not to read any.
This is on? Okay. It is my understanding that you, Ms. Biles, have been working full-time as a DEI administrator at Washington College located in the state of Maryland, not Lake George, New York, as your LinkedIn profile suggests. You knew prior to running for this position on BOE that you would be employed out of state. The online COVID meeting restrictions were used to your advantage so that you could continue in this position. I can also recall several public meetings after the restrictions were lifted where every other board member was in attendance, but you were online. It is my sincere belief that you have a responsibility to the district and to the community to step down from the BOE. Also, as I am sure you know, I sent you and the district a cease and desist letter regarding permission granted to Marianne McKenzie to campaign on school property. Since I have not heard back from you or the district, I also want to make clear that if you were the one who was involved in giving a single BOE candidate permission to campaign on school grounds, you are also responsible for breaking the law, Article 8(1) of the state constitution, or at least you were indirectly responsible for breaking the law for not stopping the activity at the public meeting. This is also grounds for you to step down. Okay. To accommodate your request, there are 44 F words and countless additional profanities in the first 66 pages of that book. Who normalizes sex acts between fourth graders? I'll tell you who: pedophiles. You are sexually grooming children, and someone should be arrested for this. Every parent in this district should forbid their children to access the library until the sexual pornography and grooming material has been removed. Yes, I believe in banning these books. As a president of the BOE, you have a moral and ethical obligation to protect the children of this district from graphic sexual material and exposure. You have not only failed to do this, but you have participated in opening a door to bring this in. You should step down for violating this duty and breaking the trust that the public had in you. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Huntley, because that was directed to me, I'm wondering if you could make a comment about the legal claims that were investigated.
So we did receive your documentation, and we're in the process of responding to it. And I'm not sure if Sarah has any of that information with her this evening, but in terms of the comment about campaigning at the candidates forum, the forum, we checked with our legal counsel. The forum was held by the League of Women Voters, and under the auspices of that organization, under the direction of that organization. There was no violation after contacting the League of Women's Voters and contacting our legal counsel. There was no electioneering done by putting out those pamphlets. We looked into past candidate forums, and indeed in past candidate forums, the practice of putting pamphlets out in the back of the auditorium has occurred. It hasn't occurred over the last couple of years because of COVID and the fact that the format did not include an audience and a panel at the same time. So as far as that particular claim, there's no issue in what was conducted. We also looked into the residency issue, and I'd ask Sarah to comment based upon the legal opinion that we received relative to that issue.
So the information we got on the residency was that residency, once established, is not given up just simply because they're working out of town. A person can live in many places, but can only have one residency. In the event of Tricia, she lives in Catskill Bay. She works out of town. This does not remove her from being a resident of Lake George.
Her husband resides there, her children reside there, she resides there. Remote attendance in the regard to being out of town and attending meetings virtually, the Public Officers Law allows this, provided criteria such as notice and an opportunity to attend at the location where the majority of the board is holding a regular in-person meeting. Lake George Board of Ed previously adopted a resolution allowing remote participation by board members. So therefore, as long as the notice provisions are met, there's no issue with Tricia attending virtually.
Sarah. Next up, we have Lisa Doster.
The last Meet the Candidates night by an elected official, when we were asked if we were for banning books, that there is a process for approving books. If that is the case, you have approved this book, Lawn Boy, for our children to read. What is the name of the policy for the books to be in our library? What is the review process and the criteria for book selections and removal? Who is in charge of this? Most likely you or somebody below you. If materials are challenged due to suitability in nature, is there a statement of concern document that parents and staff can fill out for removal? And if so, what is this document called? And if not, can we please create one? I would like to thank all that are running for school board. Just so all are aware, it is illegal to campaign on school property. I did witness the campaigning by an elected official on school grounds after the budget meeting last week. There was an official board work being conducted, and due to that, it does bind the school and any elected official from campaigning during that time on school property. Thank you for your personal call Saturday and for the acknowledgement at our last monthly meeting that a board member did actually take a job in Maryland a year ago, March to date. My opinion remains unchanged from the last meeting, and if it were me, I would do the right thing and I would step down. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to point out that I'm not sure what the claim, where the claims are coming from, but there are some inaccuracies there. And just about my own personal situation, happy to have a conversation with anybody who would like to talk to me about my work life. But in terms of my board service, I'm proud to serve, and thank you all for being part of this. The other piece was the legal claim that Doug had mentioned. Just want to reiterate that there was no law that was violated, and all of these things are verifiable. They're concrete, and they have been investigated. And if you investigate further, you'll find that as well. Are there any others? Yes.
Hi, I'm Mary Aldis, part of the short group, so sorry while I fix this. So I am a parent of 3 kids currently in the elementary school, 1 a future elementary school student. See you at Kindergarten Roundup next year. I'm an alumni of Lake George, class of 2003. I'm an administrator at the local community college and a local business owner. At the college, in my current role, I am responsible for policy development, and I understand how challenging it is to write a great policy, but great policy does lead to great work. It does support all of the work that can be done at the institution. It can further education, and this will support our local community, because if we're building great students and working in a great community, then we're going to have great people come out of it. I support and encourage my children to learn new things and further their knowledge of the world around them. The world has changed and does continue to evolve. Open conversations and support of sexual expression, racial equity, and broad access to spaces and environments should be happening during formative years to encourage a healthy and well-formed adult. I watch students that come out of this school and come to the local community college, and they do so well, they thrive. I love seeing Lake George alumni students come through the door. I get excited when I get to bond with them and say I went there too. And I just want to say I support the board, and I encourage you to keep doing great work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Did I see another hand? Yes, come on up.
Thank you. Mike Gates, I have 2 students in the district. I'm a familiar face around here. A couple quick things. In the budget presentation at the last meeting at the Meet the Candidates Night, they spoke of your capital projects fund, limiting it to $10 million to be used for building expenses. But I saw nothing contained within that referendum that would allow the board, if the funds weren't necessary to be used, that they could apply it towards the taxes or reduce the taxes within the residence. And I wanted to just know if I was hearing that correctly.
Did you have any other comments?
Oh, yes.
Go ahead.
Second was to clear up some kind of misinformation in regards to the DEI ad hoc group. During that presentation, it said that it was approved by 77% of the people in the ad hoc, but yet you only received 20 responses. So 54.54 people of the group didn't respond. So the people that actually approved it was 38% and 1.3 didn't approve it. And the third thing was regards to the book. The book is alarming to me. I'll be perfectly honest with you. That a 12-year-old student can come into this library during a freeze period and access that type of book. They are preteens. That's a conversation that they're not even ready to have, but yet they could read that in this very room that we are standing in. In regards to that, you should take a hard look at that policy, because pursuant to the penal law, it could be construed as endangering the welfare of a child, which states in part that if it affects a 16-year-old of their moral welfare. So we should take a really hard look at that to make sure we're not posing any liability to the district at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just would like to point out which policy it is that points to the process for review of books, and it's the policy is called materials selection. I do know that books are selected and examined as a whole work, not necessarily for any one particular aspect of it. But if anybody has a concern about any materials in the school, look to that policy, materials selection, for that process, or contact Dr. Huntley. Thank you. Oh, and lastly, I do just want to say, with regard to the results of the ad hoc surveys, I can only, we could only really respond to the surveys that were completed and submitted. And so that's what we did. Thank you.
Thanks. Jen?
One quick just thought I just had based on that last comment there. I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sorry, yeah, sorry. No, I'm just thinking about that last comment about, a 12-year-old's being able to read that book. I'm not supporting the book or not supporting the book, but I'm pretty sure isn't 7th grade still when public health is taught, or, health education for the students. And I'm pretty sure that sexual education is part of that content to prepare for these students for where they're going in their future. So I'm just making that point that 12-year-olds in this day and age can get on the internet and they can find all kinds of things. So I just want to put things in perspective. That's all.
Thank you very much. Yes, come on up, Greg.
I can assure you my daughter won't be finding those websites. So my question is, since this policy, there's a variation of it that was in place in 2016, correct? The DEI policy, there wasn't? Oh, there was.
The policy that we're talking about tonight, just to clarify, is a new policy up for first read.
Because I thought I had a document that was from 2016 that was similar to that one.
There is another policy that was in 2016 called the
Okay.
Gender Identity Policy. That's
Oh,
right
I'm
now. I think that's
confusing
where
them.
you're
Okay.
confused. Yeah.
Because I'm just curious as to what was happening in Lake George prior to all this implementation. Was there some kind of discrimination happening in the ethos where the kids surveyed as to what was happening in the schools. Because if that's the case, I'm feeling there's some kind of horror story in the past that was going on at Lake George Schools. So you guys have my email. So if you want to shoot me an email, it'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you.
That one's required. 2016 gender identity policy is required.
Anyone else? All right, so we are, let me just make sure I'm all set here. Can I get a motion to go into executive session to talk about the particular employment history of two different employees and then also the personnel portion of the board self-evaluation?
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carried. And folks, we don't intend to come back out into public session after our executive session. Thank you all for attending.